Welcome everyone to our social action event. I'm so happy to see you all. Thank you for taking time out and acknowledging all of our sorors and president and vice president. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And our co-chair, Yasmin Nelly. And so at this moment, I'm sorry, my name is Anita Wimple. I will now turn it over to Yasmin Nelly.
Good evening, everyone. So we wanted to say thank you all for joining us in this important conversation that is hosted by our Social Action Committee, as stated by our chair, Anita Wimple. We are welcoming our sorors and our communities and partners, and of course, some of our panelists will begin to speak and start to allow us to understand how we need to start putting our ideas into action. So because of this, our Social Action Committee, we wanted to focus more on educating ourselves, educating the community on policies and bills that directly impact our communities. Too often, our decisions that are being made are being done without us. And this is why we thought it would be important for us to begin to educate us. That way we can start to turnkey the information and everyone is aware of things that are being voted on, things that are being passed through the legislative districts and through the legislative period. And so because of that, by educating ourselves, we become better advocates. Like I said, not just for us, but for our families, our neighbors, our students, our elders, and for our community. And this was a purpose of us wanting to host this event this evening. In our chapter, we have 4 elected officials who are constantly working really, really hard for our community. And among us this evening, we have our very own, our soror, also the Assemblywoman, Relina Reynolds Jackson from the 15th Legislative District. Most of us call her our people's champ here in the city of Trenton and all of the districts that she serves. And this is a woman who is working really, really hard to have specific bills passed. And we want to learn more about the things that she is doing so that way we can now understand and find out ways and strategies that we can help support the bills that are being put forth by our Assemblywoman, also by other individuals who are in these positions. So that way we can learn, we can grow, and that way we can make more informed decisions. So now I would like to introduce Assemblywoman Relina Reynolds Jackson from the 15th Legislative District. Not only is she our Assemblywoman, but she is currently the chair of the Education Committee for the state of New Jersey. She is also the co-chair of Joint Committee of Public Schools and also the vice chair of the Appropriations Committee for the state of New Jersey. She is our superwoman. She is the people's champ. So I am going to turn it over to her as I look forward to her. She's a mentor of mine, and I'm excited to hear some words from our Assemblywoman, Relina Reynolds Jackson.
Thank you. You know, I always like to start off by saying today is, what's today, Tuesday? Happy Tuesday, everybody. The days and weeks go by so fast, but I want you to know that you are always with me when I'm at the legislature or I'm out in the community advocating for bills and policies that impact us. So I say good evening to our friends, to our families, to our sorors, to everyone that is making this day possible, this event possible. I say thank you to the Social Action Chair, Yasmin Nelly Gonzalez, and also Anita Wimple, and a special thank you to our president, Morella Holmes, for really advocating for information, right? We want to make sure that we understand the issues and things that are going on today. Today, I'm proud to talk about 3 key issues. I'm going to be talking about the Voting Rights Act of New Jersey and why we should support it. I have a special guest with me, Abby Harris, who's going to talk about car insurance reform. And I have James G. from Stono Affairs, who's going to talk about hospital transparency and affordability. These are all bills that are in the legislature right now that we need to be heard, but we can't do it by ourselves. So I'm going to start off. Am I sharing my screen right now? Did I do that right?
Yes.
She got it. So I'm going to start off by sharing the screen right now, and we're going to just do a little bit because I want to allow some time for some Q&A, but also I want you to be able to hear all of the presentations. So if you don't mind, you can put your questions in the chat and we're going to try to get to every single one of them as we move through this presentation. So tonight we're going to be talking about the John Lewis Voter Empowerment Act of New Jersey. The bill number is important. Write it down. We have a social action day that is going to be at the State House that is coming up very soon. I want you to come in prepared. You are an activist, you are an advocate, and these bill numbers are important. We only go by bill numbers. You got to have the bill number in the title for us to understand what's happening and what you want to see passed, or if you want to see something changed. And so the John Lewis Voter Empowerment Act bill number on the Assembly side is A4083, and on the Senate side is S3009. And so this legislation is the answer to voter suppression, voter confusion, and voter intimidation. It's our opportunity to honor the late congressman, but also to protect our voices. So New Jersey, we've done some great things. We've had some progress, but we're still not quite finished improving the state of our democracy. So this next slide, we're going to be talking about, we're going to celebrate what we did right so far. And that's the fact that we restored over 83,000 people who were on parole and probation. And so they have the opportunity now to register to vote. We ended prison gerrymandering, and this is all real wins for people. We have automatic registration that you can do online, and we have also online voter registration. If you don't have it, I know Ed is on this call as well. He's going to put it in the chat. There's a phenomenal app. You can check your own voter registration, and you can register people through the Secretary of State's Division of website, which is really empowering, because there has been, we've heard about it, the purging that happens at the polls. We've heard all the shenanigans that have happened when you don't know where to go to vote. This app is very good. It's updated, and it's something that you can put on your phone, just like you do Macy's. So, but progress isn't perfect, right? So we still have some things that we need to look at. We've heard about the issues they had in Burlington County with the long lines. I heard in the budget committee the other day, Burlington County, they had to wait over 3 hours. Some people waited 5 hours to vote. And you know, a lot of people don't have that kind of time. And so what does that do? It disfranchises us. It makes us think that you don't want us at the polls. And so we also have to be mindful of people with disabilities and how they can get into the polling places, or are there obstacles? So we have to be mindful of steps, where it is, people that are on wheelchairs or walkers, how far is the polling locations? And if we're moving, is there any type of voter intimidation that's happening? And so these are the persistent issues that's going on that we're trying to eliminate with this bill. So we used to rely on the federal law, and that was the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965. This is what gave us the most protection that we have ever had. But what happened is that they're starting to repeal bits and pieces of the Voting Rights Act. And in 2012, the Supreme Court gutted the heart of it. And so that's what brings us now to the New Jersey Voting Rights Act, to make sure that we can have our own state codification, so that the federal level can't come into New Jersey and disrupt what we're trying to do. And so the need for this New Jersey Voting Rights Act is, I don't know how to stress even higher than the passion that I'm showing through this camera lens right now about why it's important to get this New Jersey Voting Rights Act passed. And so what this bill does, it codifies the laws for the state of New Jersey. It makes sure that we have the protections. It makes sure we have different language access to the ballot. If there's more than, I believe we're trying to get it to 2% of a population so that they can have the ballots translated in their own language. It's a lot of people that don't speak English fluently. Also, the bill is going to put together a process where all voter registration goes together in one department. Right now, it's all disfragmented all over the state. Every county has their own way, and we don't have a way of monitoring those bad actors. So when we talk about long lines, that's individual counties that's keeping a track of that. We want to make sure that there is one department that is monitoring, so that if there are any issues that come up, we know where to go. If something happens at the polls, we want voters to know where they can go to get relief. What court systems do they go to? Right now, people just don't know. Also, it makes sure that you can't just change voting locations. It's a problem. I know I've talked to Councilwoman Yasminelli about this. When they try to move polling locations without the proper due process, again, it discriminates people. It makes the voter suppression even harder. These things are really hard for senior citizens to be able to pivot and adjust. If you notice, a lot of polling locations are in senior buildings, so that it makes it easier for them.
Yeah. Oh, here go Morella. Hold on. Hi, Morella.
Hello.
Hi, President Morella. I hear you. Thank you for being on with us. I love when we show up at the Board of Elections. It's a public meeting to be able to hear what's happening, because this is where normally we find out, oh, they're trying to change a polling location. And so these type of practices usually don't happen, but if you're not paying attention, it does. And so this is what this New Jersey Voter Empowerment Act does. It increases the language access. It increases visibility on the changes that they might try to make. It puts boards of elections on attention so that they stop doing this. They can't just do it if you have a history of discriminatory practices. You have to go through a process. And so this is what the federal level did, but they gutted that out. And so New Jersey is saying, stop. We're not going to tolerate that. But we haven't had this bill heard yet. And so this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is about fairness. This is about democracy. This is about protecting voters getting to the polls. I tell the story often that I want to make sure I can tell the story about when I bring my nieces or my nephews or people to the poll to celebrate us. This is what democracy looks like. I'm going to the polls because I want to support someone who understands climate change and supports what climate change looks like. So I think we have to continue to educate ourselves about why we're going to the polls, but also the process to get to the polls is often leapfrogged over and people just don't understand. And so I'm asking for you to contact the leadership to ask to get this bill posted and heard. Again, we're going to have our social action day. This is definitely a call to action to be able to say, this is something that we want to see enacted. We haven't even had a hearing on it yet. So we want to make sure we have one hearing. We want to have it heard again because we made some amendments. We've made some changes to it, but now we're ready to get this done, because I don't know about you, but I hear about executive orders every other day in terms of showing your ID at the polls. And again, changing locations was just, to me, it's something that we shouldn't be doing. So that's my big push for tonight. But I also wanted to talk about our why. Why are we here tonight? Why are we making sure that we go to the polls? One of those advocacy issues that I know Abby Harris is on the call, and she's going to talk about car insurance reform. Abby, are you here?
I'm here, Assemblywoman. Thank you.
Awesome. Now, Abby, do you have your slide deck?
I have her
I-
slides.
I
Oh.
had emailed them.
Yeah, I have them.
Oh,
I
thank
have
you.
them.
You have them? You have
Yes.
them?
Yes,
I don't
have
want
them.
you to think less of me, but if you relied on me to share my screen and try to do this, this would
I-
not go well. So I
I have
appreciate
them.
very much that you
Don't
have it.
worry, don't worry.
I'm going to share
Um,
now.
So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because
Mhm.
I think we had time to get that bill number down. The Senate version. We're also gonna drop in the chat, the leadership. We have, President, Nicholas Scutari. We have the Assembly, Speaker Craig Coughlin, email address. We want to make sure we tell them that this is something that is important and why we should advocate for that. But now we're going to turn to, our second fight of the night, and that's about fairness and car discrimination. So I'm going to let Abby break it down, and she's going to talk about, the issues and how we got to this moment right now in time. And so my biggest thing is I didn't even realize that I was being discriminated against until I heard about the truth behind auto insurance. But being Black, being a woman, being from Trenton, I just thought that was the rate that I had to pay until I got educated. So I'm going to push pause. I'm going to introduce our guest, Abby True Harris, who is an attorney. She's also the chief legal officer for, Reciprocal Management Corporation, which we all affectionately call Cure Auto Insurance. Abby, can you go ahead with your presentation now?
Yes, thank you very, very much. And
Uh-oh. Is she frozen?
I appreciate everyone taking time to talk about this issue, especially because I think that usually when someone says, we're going to hear a lot about car insurance now, people's eyes kind of glaze over and we start to get a little bored, right? So if you give me 1 minute, I think I can try to make it a little more exciting and relevant, as to why this is an issue that even though insurance usually sounds pretty boring, we should all care about. So my sort of broad overview is that I think what a lot of people don't know about car insurance and other types of insurance as well is, believe it or not, so many different companies actually use what I call socioeconomic factors when they're pricing you. So I'm going to go through my PowerPoint presentation in one moment, but I think we all know when we call up to get car insurance, right? They start asking us questions. They say, where, how many miles a day do you drive? Do you park your car in the street or in the garage? Do you have 3 drivers in your household or 1? And all of those questions make sense because that has to do with how likely you are to get in a car accident. Where are you driving and how much are you driving, right? But then they start asking questions like, what's your occupation? How much school have you had? And when they start asking those questions, I think that we're all just sort of formulated and trained by now just to answer them. But when you really think about it, those questions have absolutely nothing to do with how you drive. They have a lot to do with perhaps the color of your skin, your socioeconomic background, but they really don't have to do with your safety as a driver. But they all impact how much you pay for car insurance. So I'm going to go through these slides a little bit and then I'm happy to take some questions. But usually, like I was saying, when people call and get car insurance, they're asked about all these types of questions, right? How many accidents have you been in? Do you own or rent your home? What's your address? And these are all these little pieces of the formula that the insurance companies use to price your rate. We can go on to the next slide, please. So, believe it or not, prior to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, one of the questions that was on most insurance applications was, what is your race? Okay. They would say, literally, are you Black or are you white? And if your answer was anything other than white, you got put into a different insurance company. It might still be called Insurance Company A, but maybe it's called Insurance Company A LLC. And that's the Black insurance company. And then we have Insurance Company A LLP, and that's the white insurance company. And I'm sure that we can all guess that better benefits for lower costs were given to white folks, and worse benefits for higher costs were given to the insurance company that they use for people of color. We can go to the next slide. That was made illegal following the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So what happened was, after the Civil Rights 1964 was passed, allowed to ask for the race of the person applying. They started thinking, well, we have all these models in place. We have all these different companies. What are we going to do now that we cannot ask for race so that we can keep using the same rating structure? Okay, you can go to the next slide, please. So insurance companies determined, you know what, we're not allowed to ask for race, so we're going to get just about as close as we can. And instead of asking for race, we're going to remove that question from our insurance application. And we're going to ask, what education level and what occupation does the applicant have? And pretty much from that, back in 1965, they thought we can surmise, depending on your answers, if we're going to put you in the traditionally Black insurance company or the traditionally white insurance company. If you were a dentist, they would put you in the white insurance company. If you were a busboy, they would put you in the Black insurance company. So we say they used these questions, education and occupation, sort of as an end run around, as a proxy for when they used to ask about race. We can keep going to the next slide, please. So this is just, another slide for what I said. They would use these questions to determine where you should be. There was, believe it or not, as recently as 2004, there was a class action lawsuit against a life insurance company that still utilized these factors. There was the substandard company and the preferred company. Now, when you applied for the rates and you got your certificate of insurance or your quote, you had no way of knowing that you were actually put into different companies because they all looked like they were named the same. It's very surreptitious, but they were. The occupations for the substandard company, you can see what they are: janitor, unskilled laborer, garbage collector. And for the preferred company, office worker, salesman, skilled worker. Again, nobody knew that they were getting put into a different company because they were all named, very, very similar names. We can move on to the next slide. So this practice is still happening today in many states when it comes to auto insurance. I believe that Cure is one of, if not the only, one of the only car insurance carriers that does not use education, occupation, and credit score when we determine the rate. Part of the reason is the industry says, or the industry, I guess, doesn't say this, but part of the real reason is when you're a higher income individual, the insurance group, this insurance industry will make higher profits from you, right? If you're a higher income individual and you own multiple cars, maybe you own your home, maybe you have a vacation home, maybe you have a boat, maybe you have an apartment that you rent out, you are a more profitable consumer because you have more assets to insure. When you are a lower income individual, honestly, some lower income individuals probably don't even need insurance because they don't have a lot of assets to protect. So the insurance industry wants to know who the higher income individuals are, which is part of the reason why so many of these questions persist. We can go to the next slide. So they go to great lengths to try to determine the income of the different individuals that they serve, which is why they continue to ask for the education level, occupation, credit score when you're applying for something as simple as car insurance, which obviously has absolutely no correlation how safe you are as a driver to what your credit score is. We can go to the next slide. So again, education, occupation, these are proxies for asking what someone's income is now. So to give insurance companies, legitimate ways to insure wealthier consumers. So again, these are just, again, it's so easy when you're applying for this, you don't really think through all the different questions that are being asked, and why they're being asked on this application. But the end result is that families of, with less income, which statistically tend to be families of color, are charged significantly more for basic insurance for the same product. We can continue to the next slide. I'm rushing through these slides to make sure we have time for questions, but this is all just saying the same thing that I just said, that the education, the occupation, the insurance industry is really looking for ways to identify more profitable consumers. You can keep going to the next slide. So what some people have said is, well, if you remove these, if you tinker with our system, right? It's sort of like, I'm sure the Assemblywoman has heard this before, right? You don't want to see how laws or how sausage is made. What the insurance companies say is, don't mess with our system. If you start messing with our rates, everything is going to go all haywire. We can keep going to the next slide. And they say, just trust us that these statistics work. But when you actually start to look at the statistics behind the policies that the insurance carriers are advocating for, the most accidents are statistically by students, which makes sense. They're young, they're new drivers. But then we have doctors, attorneys, and architects. So we have people with lots of fancy degrees. I'll put myself in this category. I'm an attorney. And I'm getting a discount because I have that degree. But every study that's been done shows that I'm a riskier driver as an attorney, and I'm being charged less simply because I have a higher education level. That doesn't seem fair to my company, to the people that we insure, to the way that we think business should be done. You can go to the next slide, please. So Pure Auto Insurance is a very outspoken advocate for this issue for 20 years. The bill I'm about to talk about has been pending in the legislature for 18 years in New Jersey. We have traveled around the country. We have testified in front of federal Congress as well as many different state legislatures. We have been successful in outlawing this practice in several states. And frankly, we're disappointed that New Jersey is not a leader in this. Other entities like Consumer Federation of America and Consumer Reports, those are independent watchdog agencies, have done independent studies. Several years ago, Consumer Reports did an article where they did 869 quotes from different insurance carriers across the country. The only thing they changed was the level of education and the level of occupation credit score. They had the same, I'm making this up, but let's say it was a 41-year-old woman, a 5-year-old Honda Accord driving 60 miles a day. The only variable they changed were these socioeconomic factors. And the rates went up by as much as $4,000 a year for families. And so if we just pause for one moment and think about it, like I started saying, no one likes to think about insurance. If you find out now that you've been overcharged by $3,000 or $4,000 a year for the last X number of years, when we think about a 30-year-old that's trying to save up for a down payment of their first house, and we wonder, why can't they do this? Well, they just spent an extra $30,000 since they got their driver's license paying for insurance based simply on whether or not they have a college degree or what their credit score is, not on how safely they drive. We can go to the next slide. So the uninsured motorist rate in New Jersey, people are quite frankly being priced out of the market. The families with lower income levels that tend to have lower credit scores and perhaps have jobs that are considered to be, lower paying jobs and have less formal education are being priced out of the market. When these factors are being considered in how you're being priced for car insurance, it should come as no surprise that a lot of working families who are excellent drivers cannot afford insurance. And that hurts us all, right? That puts families in a very difficult position where they're being forced to choose whether they need to buy food or pay for their rent or their mortgage or pay for car insurance, or do they drive illegally? Driving without insurance, you can be put in jail in 49 out of 50 states. So it's putting people in an incredibly difficult position, and it's
Just freezing up.
increasing the amount of, next slide, please.
Hey, what you doing? I'm gonna send you a speech that I'm working on for that Beauty and the Black thing
Ed,
tomorrow.
Ed.
Thursday.
Ed, I can't see the button.
Excuse me, if you're gonna have to go on mute. And go ahead,
Ms.
Ms.
Abby.
Harris.
Oh, she might have frozen up too.
Thank you. So I think if you go to the next slide, if we can go to the next slide. What's interesting is that in New York, this was outlawed by regulation in 2018. And in New York, people, the insurance companies saying, this is going to be terrible. The sky is going to fall. Everyone rates are going to go up. This is going to cause chaos in the industry if we change how we've been doing business for decades and decades. Overall, the cost of insurance went up less than 1/10 of 1 penny per person. And the insurance companies made, I believe that the top 3 insurance companies made about 10% higher profit than they had in previous years. So consumers were not paying more. They were being charged fairly based on how they drive, and the insurance companies didn't suffer at all. So there's a bill pending in the New Jersey legislature. We're incredibly grateful that Assemblywoman Verlina Reynolds Jackson is one of the primary sponsors. It's a 2427, that's the Assembly version. The Senate version is S2944. And those are the companion bills that would prohibit car insurance companies from using education level, occupation, and credit score. We have a website, and I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'm happy to email it to someone after and it can be sent out. But the website is unjustcarinsurance.com. On that website, you can read more about that issue. And if you agree that it's unfair, you can enter in your name and address, and it will send a letter to your elected officials encouraging them to support the passage of this legislation and to make car insurance more fair and more affordable to families in New Jersey.
Miss
So,
Abby, I'm
yes,
sorry.
that's my present. I'm happy to answer questions or go over anything else if that's helpful.
Can you can you just state that or type that in the chat, or if you could just repeat the numbers again and the website you just told us to go to?
Yes, I can. I think Ed just put the the bill numbers in the chat.
Mhm.
And I believe I just put the car insurance website in the chat.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abby, for that information. I just want to remind again, this is setting us up all for our lobby day. This is something that you can definitely read up on more. The website is excellent. And the information on the bill, again, this is about affordability for New Jersey. And this is what we're trying to do. And this is why the bill is so important. And we didn't make this up. These are actual things. This is a factual issue that we're advocating for, that to bring relief to everyone. So again, you already have my support on the bill, but we need you to contact the leadership. We need to get this bill heard, and we need to be able to vote on it. And it's timely, like we need to do that right now. So I'm going to ask Ed to put in the chat box the speaker's contact information and the Senate president's contact information, because that's how things get done. And so we want to make sure, I say the rules all the time. You got to know you need 41, 21 plus 1. So you need the Senate, the Assembly, and the governor to sign a bill. We need all those people to be supportive of it. But hold on, Abby, because I also have on James G., who is the founder. We're going to go to the next one. We're going to ask the whole questions to the end.
We're going to
so that we can have time to do all the questions. So
thank you.
Next, we're going to bring up James G. from Stono Public Affairs. He's the founder. James has been doing this work for a very long time. He's a grassroots organizer, and now he's into a lobbyist. He builds coalitions and policies, and he makes sure that communities show up and that they understand what their purpose and why we're having this conversation now. So right now, I'm going to turn the virtual floor over to James to talk about hospital transparency and affordability.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, thanks so much, Assemblywoman, for having me. And we should just acknowledge that the Assemblywoman has been courageous in supporting issues that aren't always the issues that people celebrate, but they're the issues that really help working class people with survival, which I think is the number one issue we need people's help for and why we should vote. This issue is a big issue in New Jersey. The Assemblywoman is the sponsor of a bill. It's A5376, and in the Senate, it is 4299. It is a Hospital Affordability Act, and basically, to make you understand it, in New Jersey and in most hospitals, if you go to the hospital and God forbid you broke your wrist and you went to one hospital, they may charge you $4,000 for that. And I break my same wrist and I go to hospital and a different hospital charge me $16,000.
Wow.
One, there's no way for you to know how much that will cost before they work on you. You won't know it until they send you a bill a month later. And two, there's no way to say, hey, what does it actually cost? You know, if you were buying a hamburger, you'd want to know, okay, the burger costs $3 and Burger King charges me $7. But what does it actually cost? So if we had a baseline of what it actually costs, we could know, oh, Hospital A is charging us reasonably and Hospital B is just killing it, right? Like it costs $2,000 to do the wrist surgery. So one is charging you $4 and one is charging you $16. Well, that $16 is really way out of order. And the reason why this is important in particular to African-American families is I was shocked to learn that the number one reason why African-American families are filing for bankruptcy is not because we're buying red bottoms or Hermes bags or driving Mercedes. The number one reason why Black people are filing for bankruptcy is because of medical debt. And so what this bill does is really a really common sense approach that the Assemblywoman has put together. Basically says you need to have transparency. You need to tell us what it actually costs. We need to know what it costs to on your prices, and we need some sort of mechanism to know are you going up on when you go up on your prices. We need some sort of like board that would say, hey, you're going up too much too fast. And basically, without having a baseline for what stuff costs, hospitals, we've seen over time that hospitals have been just simply going up. And people keep asking me, why do I think this is happening? And I think it's happening because they can, right? Like if nobody's watching, and last year you made $2 because you were selling bubble gum for $2 and nobody's watching and people will still buy it at $5, we're gonna go up to $5. And that's just my personal opinion, is I think that's what's happening. We have some slides, but I wanted to make sure people understand what this bill is. It's basically designed to make sure that there is a baseline of what these bills cost, and it would prevent hospitals. One of the things that's terrible, why people are filing for bankruptcy, is that you go into a hospital, you don't have the money, but you sometimes go in an emergency situation, you get served, and then they send you a bill, and you can't pay the bill because the bill is ridiculous. You didn't know what it would cost. And they just keep sending you this bill, and because you can't pay it, you put it in your drawer. Well, eventually, those same hospitals sell that debt. They sell that bill to a debt collector, and now it goes on your credit, and they make money. Even if you didn't pay them, they make money off of people that didn't pay them. Well, this bill says that if you, one more thing, there's a law in federal government that says hospitals have to post their prices. There has to be publicly posted what your prices are, but nobody does it because nobody knows that they have that right. And so this bill says that if you don't post your prices, if you haven't posted your prices, if you haven't effectively and affirmatively shown to the public what your prices are and what they're based on, then you cannot sue people if they don't pay you. It's a real common sense bill that not only establishes a sort of a board to monitor prices, it also makes sure that if someone goes up on prices without complying with federal law, that you are then able to actually stop them from taking people to court, suing them, or selling their information to debt collectors. We know a bunch of people with bad hits on their credit because they have some medical debt that they never took care of. And so we've seen over time what the slide shows that we've seen over time that there's this variance in prices. And even when you look at how CMS is the Center for Medicaid and Social Security, they sort of govern hospitals. And even when they rate a hospital high, like you got the 5, the highest rating, or you have 3, which is the lowest rating, there's very little difference in price. Both of those places have increased their prices. So people can't say that, oh, you're paying more at a particular hospital because it's better quality. Some hospitals who have a low rating are charging some of the highest fees. And so a coalition of unions, CWA, AFSCME, SEIU, even the PBA and the Firemen's Union all got together to create this coalition. And Assemblywoman Verlina Reynolds Jackson has been their champion to bring all of this information together to say that when people are fighting for increases in their salary, that salary increase is being eaten up by the medical costs. And in particular, in CWA, there are people who, the way that their system works is that they get, as you make more money, you pay more for your healthcare. Healthcare costs are so significant that there are some people who have gotten promotions, who have then gone back and said, you know what, take that promotion back. I want to be in my old position because once I got the promotion, I couldn't afford healthcare for my whole family. And I think that this problem is a problem that people are suffering in silence and don't really realize that everybody's having this problem. And we really have to do something about it. And so we are encouraging you to reach out to, when the Assemblywoman says call leadership, there's a speaker in the House that makes the decision about what is voted on, what comes up for a vote in committee and on the floor. We'd love for you to call the Speaker of the House. And there's a Senate President in the Senate side. And the Speaker Speaker Craig Coughlin out of Middlesex County is the Speaker. And Senator Nick Scutari out of Union County is the President of the Union of the Senate. Both of those gentlemen have to post this bill in order to get it on the docket and actually get so that Verlina and her colleagues can vote on it. And so when we say we need you to call leadership, we don't need you just to call the people where you live. We need you to call the people who make those decisions about getting a bill heard. And so that is not just that. So that's Nick Scutari and Speaker Coughlin. I think that if you start to talk to people about, and I think one of the issues that we have is that we don't have enough conversations about what people are struggling with. And I think there are more people who, if you looked on their credit report, you'd see this very issue, that there's some lingering medical bill, some lingering bill that they've forgotten about, or that they don't even know exists. Or there are people with a crowded drawer in their kitchen that when they get this bill, they just stick it in. And so this has other implications as to people's ability to buy homes and get cars and all that sort of stuff. So would love to take any questions you'd like. We'll send to everybody the sheets that we provided that basically show the vast variety in how much things cost, from hip surgery to pregnancies, people who are having babies. It varies from $6,000 to have a child to $26,000, and no one can say what it actually costs. This bill would create a board that would watch and tell you exactly what it should cost and to monitor, oh, that particular hospital went up on its costs 50%. Right now, that could happen and nobody would know. So this creates a watchdog group to make sure that happens. I'd love to take anyone's questions.
Thank you so much. I think, the issues that we're talking about today is definitely about democracy. It's talking about affordability, and it's really taking action into our hands and what we can do. And so again, we keep on saying, be prepared. We do our lobby day every year. I think this is issues that, again, this is not a D or an R. This is an advocacy issue. This is an affordability issue. This is something that we can definitely be able to talk about. And I say, share your stories. Share your stories about, your hospital debt. Share your stories about your affordability with car insurance reform, and definitely share your stories about what democracy looks like and what you want it to have in your community. All of these things are all connected together. I'm going to push pause now. I'm going to turn it back over to the leadership so you all can open it up for any type of questions that might be online or in the chat. But we are all here to be able to answer your questions. I just wanted to make sure that we got through the presentation first, but we're ready for your questions and answers now.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Thank you, Ms. Harris and Mr. G. I believe we're going to, Sora Jessica and Sora Talisha had some questions that came up.
Yes, the first one of the questions that was in the chat regarding the car insurance reform. It says, I was told that my zip code also causes my insurance to be so high. How does this work?
So this is Abby again. And to be honest, I could do a whole nother hour-long Zoom on that. And I can put my email in the chat and whoever has specific questions can reach out to me. Zip code is a little bit different. Zip code is actually, there's an entire map. It's called Zip Code Territorial Relativities that's released by the state and the Department of Insurance every year. Based on density and other things like that, different zip codes, there is a higher chance of getting into an accident, right? If you're driving in the middle of the countryside on a big open road when there's nobody there, the chances that you're going to get sideswiped or that you might get into an accident with someone else are statistically much less than if you're in the middle of a city or even in Princeton and you're driving on, bumper to bumper, back to back traffic. So that is a conversation that can be had because I understand that when different zip codes are used, it can change the rate significantly. However, that's a different conversation than the use of pure socioeconomic factors where there's no statistical correlation whatsoever to how somebody drives. So I'm not saying that one conversation is more important than the other, but they need to be separate conversations because there is a statistical correlation with zip codes and accident rates. That's different than saying, well, I'm going to use your education level or I'm going to use your credit score when that statistical correlation does not exist. I'm not sure if that fully answers the question. I can go into all the maps and all the statistics, but I want to make sure other folks have time to ask questions. But I'm happy to talk more about it, privately if there's additional questions about zip code. It is an issue, but it's a separate issue.
There's also an implicit bias, right? Because if you live in Trenton, the incidents that happen in Trenton have an impact on what your insurance risk is. But if you live in Princeton, it's less. But cats that live in Princeton that work on Wall Street, drive their car, park it in Trenton all day, and they don't have to pay the penalty that I have to pay for living there. So
absolutely.
Same thing with Newark. So like you live in Montclair, but you work in New York, so you drive to Newark, park your car in Newark all day until midnight when you come home from work, but you don't get charged for that. I get charged because I live in Trenton.
Absolutely. And James, you've heard my spiel on this bill. You've heard my boss's spiel on this bill. Absolutely. That is an issue to talk about. I would just say it's a separate conversation and it's more of a public policy issue saying, okay, even if there's a statistical justification for this, is it the right policy that we have? When we're talking solely about the use of socioeconomic factors like credit score, education level, occupation, there's no statistical justification. So it's just it's a slightly different conversation. Zip codes are not a part of the bill that I'm talking about because it's different. It's a different background to it, but very happy to talk about that issue in terms of, other policy areas or different. But yeah, I hear absolutely what you're saying, James, and Ms. Gamble, who asked the question. Everyone, I understand. It's just a different policy issue.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you. One other question, and it's basically requesting email. If you could please share the number regarding the healthcare billing.
The number of the bill is, I think it's in the chat, but it's 5376 in the Assembly and 4299 in the Senate. Also, feel free to drop a note to people. I used to be a staffer. We used to get 1 million postcards from people on issues. All of that stuff, all that worrisome stuff makes issues rise to the top. I really do think on this healthcare issue, there are more people struggling with this than we realize. And I think people are just, Black folk in particular, we just sort of make it work. We fight through it, not realizing that everybody's suffering and that we have the ability to make a change, which is why I want to say, I want to thank the Delta Sigma Theta and the Assemblywoman, because we need as many interpreters for our people as possible. Many Black people are too preoccupied with survival to think about this stuff. And so we need people, trusted voices, to interpret what I should be doing to try to impact my life. And so I really appreciate that this organization has taken time to try to learn something about these pieces of legislation so that you can interpret it for people who are too preoccupied with survival in order to take the activism that you all are.
I did want to share one more screen that I have for the ballot design that's coming up. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
So this is the ballot design this year. It's different than what it looked like before. You can't go straight down. It's office block design. And so you have your governor block, the assembly block, county clerk, and board of commissioners. You have your D's and your R's, but you have to go look for the person that you want to vote for. And I say this because, we're educating ourselves about the issues. And so as you educate yourselves about who's running for office, these are the issues that you want to take when you go cast your vote. Who supports auto insurance reform? Who supports democracy and protecting New Jersey voting rights? Who supports hospital transparency and affordability issues? These are the questions that we should keep in mind as we do our research and we go to the ballot. But I had to point out to you how this ballot design is different. You cannot go straight down. It won't be counted. You got to go and fish for the one, for the two, for the one, for the two. You have to go look for the person that you want to be able to vote for. So that's extremely important. You can go to the county clerk's website also and see what your town looks like, what your district looks like. These are all available and you should be receiving them. Vote by mails are out now. My mom already voted by mail. So again, just trying to connect the dots together and making sure that why our issues are so important. And we want to just make sure that, again, why voting is important. So I want to thank you all again for allowing this opportunity to share with you for almost an hour about issues that are personal to each and every one of us. And I just want to say thank you again to the leadership for allowing us to have this discussion.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman, and all of the participants. We are going to, SORA Chair Anita is going to put in the chat the evaluation link as we prepare to have closing remarks from SORA President Morella McMillan Holmes.
Good evening. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the Social Action. Hold on, let me just mute this other one, y'all. I'm doing double duty as always. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the Social Action Committee for having the foresight to educate us. Because this year, for the 2025-2026 year, what I really want to focus on is definitely political literacy. Because I think for so often we haven't had the benefit of understanding the power of our vote and what the importance of our vote means and does. So kudos to the Social Action Committee and kudos to our Assemblywoman. Hello, thank you so much. Who knew? First of all, who knew about car insurance? And thank you to Mr. G, who knew about the inequities of healthcare. We thought it was just the diagnoses. We didn't realize it was about how they charge us. So thank you so much for bringing those to highlight, to make sure that we as a sorority stay on top of it, to make sure that we're educating our communities. And I have just taken some nuggets, but definitely our focus as a sorority this year will be political literacy. Thank you for making sure we understand that, one, You know, you have to know the Senate side and the House side. Absolutely. We have to know the bills and the titles. So these are the types of things that when we put together various things, we're going to understand what it means to have political literacy and who is your assemblywoman, who is your assembly person. So that way we can do those, that mobilizing and organizing that Mr. G talked about, because it is, the time is now. We cannot play. We cannot take anything for granted. And even the layout of the ballot. I don't get a mail-in ballot, but thank you, Assemblywoman, for letting us know, because that's yet another thing that we need to educate our constituents, our community about, because something as slight as a layout in a ballot can trip you up. Particularly if you're used to going into the ballot box and just doing it some way, and now they changed the layout. So once again, we have to make sure we educate our voters, our constituents, our community about something as slight as a ballot layout. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for, just letting us understand what we have to do now. And political literacy is definitely high on the mark. Thank you again. And as always, as Delta Sigma Theta sorority, we will try our best, one, to educate, but also to bring relevant and real issues to our community. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Please fill out the evaluation form.
And the link is in the chat.
Okay, let's see.
And let us know if there's any problems with the link.
Let's see.